History is filled with stories of racial injustice, but some are so horrifying they leave scars that never heal. Today we're uncovering 11 of the most brutal massacres where Black communities were targeted, their lives and dreams shattered by violent acts of white supremacy. Imagine being targeted and killed, not for any crime you committed, but simply because of the color of your skin. Worse still, the perpetrators of these horrific acts often escape justice, never facing the consequences of their crimes. These massacres are not just stories of the past, they're reminders of the systemic racism that shaped the lives of Black Americans. The pain, loss, and resilience of these communities continue to echo through time. As we explore these dark chapters, let us remember the lives lost and the resilience of those who fought for their humanity. Watch until the end, because the magnitude of these tragedies will shock you. Let's begin. 11. Memphis Massacre 1866. In Memphis, Tennessee, during the tumultuous period of Reconstruction, the fragile progress of newly freed Black citizens was met with brutal resistance. Tensions between white residents and Black Union soldiers, who symbolized the fight for freedom and equality, erupted into a horrifying act of violence. A white mob unleashed terror on Black communities, murdering more than 40 Black men, women, and children in cold blood. Schools and churches, the heart of Black progress and resilience, were set ablaze, reducing symbols of hope to ashes. Homes were looted, and families were left to grieve their loved ones in fear and despair. This massacre wasn't just about killing, it was about sending a chilling message to Black Americans: your freedom comes at a price, and your progress will be met with bloodshed. The Memphis Massacre remains a haunting example of the systemic hostility toward Black citizens during Reconstruction, a time when their dreams of equality were repeatedly crushed under the weight of white supremacy. 10. New Orleans Massacre 1866. Just months after the horrors of Memphis, the streets of New Orleans became another stage for unthinkable violence. Black Union veterans and their allies gathered at a political convention to demand the right to vote, a fundamental freedom promised but not yet realized. They were met with a calculated and coordinated attack by white mobs and local law enforcement. The brutality was relentless. Over 40 Black individuals were killed, and 146 were severely wounded. Survivors recounted the bloodied streets and the screams of those who were hunted down simply for seeking equality. This massacre demonstrated the extreme lengths to which white supremacists would go to suppress Black political power in the South. It was more than an act of violence, it was an act of war against democracy itself, a deliberate attempt to silence Black voices and maintain the grip of oppression. The wounds of this tragedy still echo in the fight for justice and voting rights today. Eufaula Massacre 1874. On Election Day in Eufaula, Alabama, a day that should have symbolized democracy and empowerment, Black voters became targets of unimaginable violence. Determined to exercise their hard-won right to vote, Black citizens were met with brutal force. White mobs descended upon them, killing over 70 Black individuals in a coordinated attack meant to erase their presence from the polls. Others were injured or forced to flee, abandoning their right to participate in shaping their future. The massacre was not just an act of intimidation, it was a declaration that Black voices would not be tolerated in the political landscape. Entire families were left grieving the loss of their loved ones while facing the chilling reality that their votes, their voices, and their humanity were seen as threats to the existing order. The Eufaula Massacre stands as a grim testament to the lengths white supremacists would go to maintain power, a bloody reminder of how fragile progress was during Reconstruction. If these stories are as chilling to you as they are to us, take a moment to like this video and subscribe. The more we share these truths, the more we honor the victims and ensure history is never forgotten. 8. Ocoee Massacre 1920. In Ocoee, Florida, the fight for the right to vote turned into a nightmare on Election Day. Black residents who tried to exercise their constitutional right were met with deadly violence. White mobs, enraged by the sight of black political engagement, set homes, businesses, and churches ablaze, engulfing the community in flames and terror. Families were forced to flee, leaving everything behind, while others faced brutal deaths. Up to 80 black men, women, and children were killed, their bodies often left unburied as a grotesque warning to others. Survivors spoke of the sheer brutality of the mobs, who spared no one in their campaign to silence black voices. The massacre didn't just claim lives, it erased the black population of Oki entirely, leaving a predominantly white town in its wake. This atrocity exemplifies the extreme measures taken to suppress black political participation and serves as a chilling reminder of the violence that accompanied the struggle for civil rights. 7. Slocum Massacre 1910. The peaceful community of Slocum, Texas, was shattered by a wave of terror fueled by unfounded rumors of a black uprising. White mobs, armed and determined to assert dominance, descended upon the town, indiscriminately hunting and killing black residents. Entire families were wiped out, and the community was left in ruins, with survivors fleeing for their lives. Over 100 black people were killed, though the true death toll may never be known due to the silence that followed. Properties were abandoned, and the thriving black community was completely destroyed. The massacre left deep scars, but local authorities refused to hold anyone accountable, ensuring that the tragedy faded into obscurity. For those who survived, the loss was more than physical, it was the erasure of their history, livelihoods, and dreams. The Slocum Massacre stands as a haunting reminder of the violence that often followed baseless accusations against black communities. These aren't just stories of the past, they are wounds that still bleed into the present. As we uncover the depth of these tragedies, the sheer scale of injustice becomes undeniable. Sadly, did you know that the same mentality and tendencies still exist in our society today? 6. St. Bernard Parish Massacre 1868. During the 1868 presidential election, St. Bernard Parish in Louisiana became a site of unimaginable bloodshed. White supremacists, determined to suppress Republican votes and silence the voices of black citizens, unleashed a wave of terror. Over 100 black men were slaughtered as they attempted to exercise their newly won right to vote. Homes were invaded, families were torn apart, and survivors were left with nothing but the trauma of what they had endured. This massacre was not an isolated event, but part of a broader campaign of violence designed to dismantle Reconstruction and reassert white dominance. The victims of St. Bernard Parish paid the ultimate price for daring to claim their place in the democratic process. Their deaths remain a chilling reminder of the fragility of progress during this volatile period of American history. 5. New York Draft Riots 1863. The summer of 1863 brought chaos and bloodshed to the streets of New York City, as racial tensions erupted in one of the deadliest riots in American history. White mobs, enraged by the Civil War draft and the Emancipation Proclamation, targeted black residents in an orgy of violence. Entire neighborhoods were ransacked, with homes and businesses looted and set ablaze. Black men were lynched in public squares, women were beaten, and children were left orphaned amidst the carnage. At least 119 black people lost their lives, though many more were left injured or displaced. The riots exposed the depth of racism even in the North, shattering the illusion that hatred was confined to the South. For black New Yorkers, the violence destroyed their sense of safety and community, leaving scars that would last for generations. 4. Rosewood Massacre 1923. The once thriving black community of Rosewood, Florida, was destroyed in a storm of hate and lies. A white woman's false accusation against a black man ignited the fury of white mobs who descended upon Rosewood with deadly intent. Homes, businesses, and churches were reduced to ashes as flames consumed the town. Men, women, and children were brutally murdered. Some estimates suggest the death toll reached 200. Survivors fled into the swamps, hiding for days while their lives and livelihoods were obliterated. Property was stolen, and the remaining residents were forced to abandon their land forever. For decades, the massacre was buried in silence, with no justice served and no reparations given. It wasn't until 1994 that the state of Florida acknowledged the tragedy, offering compensation to the survivors. The Rosewood massacre remains a symbol of the destruction that racial hatred can wreak and the resilience of those who endured it. 3. Elaine Massacre 1919. In Elaine, Arkansas, a peaceful effort by black sharecroppers to organize for fair wages turned into a deadly nightmare. White mobs, supported by law enforcement and even federal troops, attacked the community with unrelenting violence. An estimated 240 black men, women, and children were killed, many gunned down as they fled for their lives. Survivors who managed to escape were arrested and falsely accused of inciting violence, further victimized by a justice system designed to oppress them. Homes were burned, families were torn apart, and the community was left in ruins. For decades, the massacre was buried in silence, its victims denied acknowledgement or justice. The Elaine Massacre is a harrowing reminder of the deadly risks Black Americans faced when fighting for their basic rights during an era of systemic oppression. 2. Opelousas Massacre 1868. The Reconstruction-era town of Opelousas, Louisiana, became a site of unimaginable violence as a confrontation between black residents and white supremacists escalated into mass slaughter. White mobs launched a calculated attack, killing as many as 300 black men, women, and children in a single day. Entire families were wiped out, homes were looted, and survivors were driven from their land. This massacre was not a random act of violence but a deliberate attempt to suppress black political participation and dismantle Reconstruction. The deaths in Opelousas were part of a broader campaign of terror designed to erase the progress of newly freed black citizens. The tragedy serves as a haunting reminder of the lengths to which white supremacists would go to maintain power. 1. Tulsa Race Massacre 1921. Greenwood, Oklahoma, once known as Black Wall Street, stood as a beacon of black success and prosperity. In 1921, this thriving community was destroyed in one of the most devastating acts of racial violence in U.S. history. A false accusation against a young black man fueled a white mob's fury, leading to the destruction of homes, businesses, and churches. Over 2 days, an estimated 300 black residents were killed, and thousands were left homeless as the entire community was reduced to ashes. Survivors described scenes of unimaginable cruelty, including aerial attacks with firebombs dropped from planes. For decades, the massacre was deliberately erased from history, leaving survivors and descendants without justice or acknowledgement. Efforts to rebuild Greenwood continue, but the pain of the Tulsa Race Massacre lingers as a stark reminder of the hatred and violence aimed at black prosperity. Thank you for staying with us as we honored these untold stories of loss and resilience. If you believe these stories deserve to be shared, like this video and subscribe to our channel. And for more hidden truths of history, watch our video 13 Dark Crimes Against Native Americans. Together we can keep these memories alive.